Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the Economic Development Committee to order. My name is Candy Merrow Carlson, Chair of the Economic Development Committee, and with us here tonight we have Peter Dunn, who is the Chief Development Officer for Economic Development. We also have Paul Morano, who is the Assistant Chief Development Officer for Special Projects. We have Councilor Kate Toomey, who is with us this evening, along with Tim Gerthy, who is Chief Financial Officer. And we have AJ Pottle, who is clerking the meeting this evening. And I will ask Mr. Pottle if he would read item 1A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and in order to ensure active public engagement, the City of Worcester allows for both in-person and remote participation at all of its meetings. To partake in the meeting, you can either come into the meeting location or you can join via Zoom. There's a link that's listed on the Granicus portal of the city's website, and there's also a phone number. Tonight's phone number is 1-646-828-7666, and the access code is 160-382-3487. We do ask that folks use the raise hand function when on Zoom. So if an item comes up that you would like to be recognized for, that's on the bottom center of your screen if you're on the application, and if you're on a phone, you dial *9. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pottle. Moving on to item 2A, order that the City Council Standing Committee of Economic Development hereby approves the minutes of the Economic Development Committee meeting on August 19th, 2025.
Councilors Pasillo, Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 3A, communications of the city manager. 3A, transmitting informational communication relative to housing and neighborhood development activities. Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is one of our semi-annual economic development reports to the council that we submitted this fall in September. This one dedicated to housing and neighborhood development activities. There are a lot of updates and information in this memo for sure, but just some highlights that I would raise would be the adoption both of the planning board and the city council of the municipality's first ever housing production plan, which we just got state approval on as well. We also have significant progress happening on establishing the city's first ever day resource center for the unhoused community in partnership with the Central Mass Housing Alliance. As it relates to one of the key recommendations of Now Next that we adopted before the state required it under the Affordable Homes Act, being accessory dwelling units, we now have, in just about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half, we have over 50 permits for accessory dwelling units in the city, 11 of which have been fully created. So the other 39 or so are in various stages of their process of bringing those units online. And then the other highlight I wanted to mention that sometimes gets not lost, but it's our normal course of key role that we have in our neighborhood development division is the administration of our federal entitlement funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Every year we go through that RFP process and administer those contracts under Community Development Block Grant in particular. For public services and public facilities as well as some other activities and programs. And this year, the federal government was a little delayed in getting us our contract, so that fiscal year begins, as you know, in July 1st, and we didn't get our contract from the federal government until I think it was sometime in August. And because of our staff's ability to quickly work through that and turn it around with the law department, we were able to get that contract executed before the federal shutdown. So by their quick work in that regard, we were able to continue to access these federal resources as well as our community-based organizations during the federal shutdown, which was an important thing for us to be able to accomplish for the communities amidst all the other challenges happening right now. So that was something else that I wanted to acknowledge the neighborhood development team and our grants management team for that. But those are just some of the, I guess, quick highlights that I would provide for this semi-annual report, and happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Mr. Dunn, with the 11 completed of the accessory dwelling units, do we know how did that go, or was there hurdles in those getting to completion? Be curious to hear how that process worked out.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one of the things that we're going to continue to gather information from those folks that have either completed their units, pulled permits. We've been working with other departments as well based on their considerations to create, and I think we have this in draft form already, like a resource guide for folks. I think City of Boston did something similar, and we'd like to produce something like that for our homeowners and property owners. And also we'll be highlighting it again this year in our landlord summit that's coming up in January, I believe. Because you're right, there are some things that people don't realize, all that goes into creating one of these. And I would say particularly for new accessory structures. So as we know, accessory dwelling units, they could be the renovation of an interior unit, whether it's an attic or a basement. Particularly, I think the renovations inside of a property tend to be a little easier, a little more seamless, less surprises. But the creation of a new accessory structure has some implications. I think the biggest hurdle, I guess I would say, or surprise for folks is just thinking through all the utility connections. So both the private utilities with electric, I think a lot of folks are doing, heat pumps are all electric versus any kind of gas connection to these new accessory structures, but also then the water sewer. And do you need to have a separate line coming into that accessory structure? Could you actually leverage the existing service line that comes in from the main in the street to the house? Are there going to be separate meters? Who's going to be occupying the accessory dwelling? So those kinds of considerations for folks to think through. And I believe, at least in the 2 or 3 examples I know of the 11 that have been created, and again, not all 11 have been those separate accessory structures, but in the few examples I'm aware of that have been new accessory structures, the total costs are in excess of $300,000. So it's not a simple, cheap thing to have done. And in one case, it was one of the modular type prefabricated structures versus created on site with wood. So we are continuing to gather that feedback from folks and developing a resource guide and making sure that other departments' perspectives and that information can get out so that folks know kind of what to anticipate, what's involved, and some best practices around how best to handle some of those things like utility connections.
Thank you. Councilor Toomey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's an awful lot in this report, and I really want to congratulate you for really moving forward with all of this. I think that, the other thing is the whole MBTA communities, that how important that is, making sure that that was all done. You guys just were right on top of that, and I appreciate we didn't have any issues or any concerns or whatsoever, so that was great. And the CPA, I think that's important, that you finished the first round of funding allocations and $1.25 million to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is a critical element here. So, so that was good. But it's great seeing I know some of these projects. I know some of the homeless supportive programs, there's been issues with getting vouchers for some of them. And I know that that's kind of held things off a little bit, but I know that they're working hard to try to move forward with that. I don't have anything other than, it's a very comprehensive report, and I appreciate the work.
I have a question. Talking to a couple of individuals, and they talked about the continuum of care monies maybe not being there going forward. Is that a accurate statement, or is that just somebody talking and not having all of the information?
Yes, Madam Chair. So it's not well articulated in this report because the annual RFP from the federal government just came out last week, which is very important funding. for our resource partners that are part of that continuum care, which is basically, the different programs and assistance provided to the unhoused community, particularly the chronically unhoused, but also folks that are at risk of homelessness. And there are a number of changes in this year's RFP compared to last year, which are quite concerning for sure, particularly with the assistance that's generally provided through the continuum of care for permanent supportive housing. Both, I think, the level of rental assistance as well as wraparound services that are important for those permanent supportive housing units to be successful. So we're working through that right now, kind of digesting it with those agency partners. The lead for the continuum of care in the city is Central Mass Housing Alliance, but some of what they do gets distributed to other partners, and I think there are some other partners going to kind of apply directly through that RFP as well, but could have some impacts to organizations like Worcester Community Housing Resources, Friendly House. So we're currently digesting that, but overall, I think nationwide, I saw the summary, which was, I think, a multi-billion-dollar cut to that particular program nationwide, and obviously that has a substantial impact here locally. I think it has to do with some of the shift. It seems like the federal administration seems to be shifting a little bit away from the kind of housing first mentality that has been a best practice for many years now. So we're trying to, strategically figure out how to best utilize the resources that should still become available to us, but then also how to, navigate some of the gaps that'll be created and try to fill those gaps in other ways.
Thank you. So the motion on this would be to file this at this point. Am I correct, Mr. Dunn? Motion would be to file 3A. Mr. Pottle?
Councilors Pasillo, Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. So item 3B is transmitting informational communication relative to economic development initiatives. Mr. Dunn.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is another one of our typical semi-annual reports the council also submitted on that same agenda in September. And this report typically highlights a number of our long-range planning activities, other initiatives of the Planning Division, Special Projects Division, Worcester Redevelopment Authority. And so I think it's important that when we create plans like Worcester Now Next, to really continue to measure how we're doing on implementation of those recommendations. So that's going to be a feature of this semi-annual report now and moving forward. I know we already talked about the housing production plan and accessory dwelling units in the last report because of the connection, of course, to housing. One of the other ones that was not led by our department, but we were involved in some aspects of it, was the completion and ongoing implementation of the mobility action plan that was led by the Department of Transportation and Mobility. So that has been published, and then sort of an offshoot of that is the Vision Zero plan. And that's important for Now Next because Now Next is really about the built environment zoning, and it's not just about land use and where do we put new housing units, where do we put new jobs, but also how do people move around the city, how do they access those jobs, how do they access those services or housing opportunities, which is why transportation is part of the Now Next plan. And then one of the recommendations that we're working on right now, or building upon, is this kind of overarching recommendation to initiate a zoning rewrite for the city. I'll get to that in a minute, but as that takes some time, one of the interim recommendations was what's called pre-overhaul zoning changes. So that's where the accessory dwelling units recommendation came in. And then one that we're actively working on right now is looking at the off-street parking ratios in the zoning ordinance. So while that'll be looked at holistically as part of the zoning rewrite, putting forward something to kind of do a little bit of a test case or a pilot as this kind of, I guess I would say, Band-Aid approach to the existing zoning ordinance while we undertake that comprehensive zoning rewrite. And so we had submitted an informational communication to the city council in October, I think it was, which was referred to the planning board, and the planning board did discuss that, and it'll be back to this committee at some point. I think it might have even been on the latest council agenda to be referred to this committee. So this committee has had an opportunity to have a further hearing about it, but basically it gives some best practices, kind of where we're headed, what some other communities have been doing, both in New England and beyond, sort of the root cause of why a lot of communities are looking at this as an issue and a barrier to housing production, among other considerations, and just wanted to use that informational communication as an opportunity to get further feedback from the planning board, the city council, and the community before we formulate our specific recommendation around a zoning ordinance amendment. So it's something that is kind of very currently in progress, and we look forward to having that feedback wrap up and hopefully a draft zoning ordinance recommendation to the council in early 2026. And then one that could come before the council before the end of the calendar year, hopefully. I know they're actively working on it, is this recommendation to reform tree protection requirements. This is something that we're collaborating on. I'd say the lead is really the Department of Sustainability and Resilience, as well as the Parks Department. As you know, we have the new, or relatively new, Urban Forestry Tree Commission, and it's been important to them. So they've been weighing in on it. And so our department has been really acting as a supporting role for that. And they'll hopefully have this kind of interdepartmental type council item coming before the city council, either before the end of the calendar year or in January. But I know they're actively working on that. And then related to the big picture item of the zoning rewrite, as well as a recommendation around departmental capacity, we were very appreciative that both the city manager and the city council had supported our FY26 budget request to have a new dedicated full-time position in the planning office for long-range planning. And one of their major tasks and first order of business would be initiating this zoning rewrite. And that position is we're working with HR right now to get that posted. I expect it should be posted and advertised before the end of this month. So that'll be great to get the long kind of big picture item in motion with this comprehensive zoning rewrite process. So that's kind of where we're at on the various, we call them 6 early action items of the Now Next plan. And then as Councilor Toomey mentioned, the MBTA compliance is referenced in here. And then I also wanted to give additional recognition to the planning office and their outreach related to flood map updates. So there was 2 flood map updates. One was very minor, related to the Nashua River watershed that was adopted by zoning amendment in the council by the council in June or July, which only affected less than 2,000 square feet in the city. But the big one being the imminent flood map update to the Blackstone River watershed, which affects a lot of the southwest area of the city around Webster Square, Mill Street area, all of those kind of waterways that kind of go down into the Blackstone River. So there are a number of changes to that flood map, a number of properties coming out of the flood map, some properties getting into the flood map, and I think our team did a really great job of doing outreach relative to those affected properties and neighborhoods. And it is still going to be some time before those flood maps become effective. What they had, FEMA, the federal government handles this, and they had put out preliminary map changes. So that's what we had been communicating and giving folks a heads up on. But it's anticipated that the new maps would be officially effective either in late 2026 or early 2027. So there is still some time related to that. And then related to special projects, we give some updates around the urban revitalization plan of the Worcester Redevelopment Authority, some projects within that plan, as well as the district improvement financing area of the ballpark initiative, which I know was discussed at the city council at the last meeting. And at Union Station, we've had a lot of progress at Union Station, both with the center platform being completed, and we had started, as the council is probably familiar with, when they 2 years ago now took away the express train in the morning. We had formulated a local working group with local leadership, as well as the MBTA and DOT leadership, to make sure that Worcester's voice was consistently being prioritized, and the needs of our commuters and the needs of our rail service, so that as they make decisions around capital investments across the MBTA system, that they're making sure that they're kind of following through on that commitment to regional equity and regionalization, particularly with the Fair Share Amendment resources that are now available to the Commonwealth. And so we think that the future is bright in terms of future service improvements, both frequency and dependability on our line into Boston, starting with the $20 million recent commitment from MBTA to improve signalization along that line, which should help with more frequency in terms of the headways for trains that leave Union Station. Right now, it's, about an hour or so, and we think with that signalization, it seems like if they do have, again, the capacity with rail cars and, scheduling accommodations, that they could improve to 30-minute headways versus the about hour headways that they have now. Tenancies have been successful with the 961 restaurant, as well as the grand opening of the food hub earlier this year at the lower section of Union Station, and we'll be working on a request for proposals coming up soon in anticipation of the Luciano's and Maxwell Silverman's lease expiring later this summer in terms of the future, because we want to make sure that that Grand Hall continues to be a showpiece for the city and all the great special events that can happen in the Grand Hall. So we're working on planning for that in the near future. And then, as was referenced earlier by Councilor Toomey, the Special Projects Division led by Mr. Morano and our program manager, Jacqueline Burmeister, did a great job with the initial initial round of the Community Preservation Act funds, and they're preparing and have pre-applications open right now in anticipation for the second round. So looking forward to all the projects that have been awarded. It was 17 projects were awarded in the initial round, totaling about $4.3 million across those three categories, as we know that CPA is designed to support in terms of open space and recreation, historic preservation, and affordable housing. So the affordable housing mainly in this round was in totality the Affordable Housing Trust Fund allocation of $1.25 million. The open space and recreation category led the total amount with $1.7 million, and then historic preservation about $1.4 million. So a good mix across all three categories in the initial round, and look forward to building upon that work moving forward. So those are kind of some of the main highlights. The other thing I just wanted to, reference that I've been saying as of late as well is that there are some of these kind of higher profile projects that tend to get a lot of attention or the headlines, but the special projects team has also been doing a great job on some very important but smaller projects. When we look at some infill development opportunities, these smaller lots that might be in a neighborhood, and maybe they're also a blight on that neighborhood or underutilized. If it's only 5,000, 6,000 square feet, how do we work towards putting those into productive reuse and getting them out to the market and seeing either home ownership created or new rental housing created? And we've had a number of successes over the last year, in particular with Habitat for Humanity. They finished 2 new affordable homes at 521 and 523 Sunderland Road, and then are actively working on 13 Holly Street, 9 Davis Street, and 33 Ripley Street. Great partnership we've had, and the Habitat continues to look for more opportunities, and we've done certainly some similar examples with other developers and other agencies aside from Habitat for Humanity. Most recently, the sale of 6 Claremont Street to Worcester Community Housing Resources for them to create 4 tiny homes on that property to serve the community in that regard with deeply affordable rental housing in those 4 tiny homes. So those are some of the highlights of the overall Economic Development Initiative report.
Thank you. Follow-up question, the 4 tiny homes, are those 4 tiny homes for seniors for rental?
Yes, Madam Chair, the focus, based on the need that has been identified both by Worcester Community Housing Resources and a number of different community partners that have been involved in their effort, is targeting seniors for those 4 homes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Couple other questions. When was the last time we looked at our zoning in the city of Worcester?
Madam Chair, we've done a number of updates to the zoning ordinance. We obviously had to make a substantial change to accommodate cannabis uses. We also did a significant overlay in 2015, which was the Commercial Corridors Overlay District, which was a good, amendment or Band-Aid that really helped us get to some of the kind of direction that now next is also taking us as it relates to not over-dedicating land area to off-street parking, encouraging pedestrian-type development scales, the way that buildings relate to the street environment, where is parking located. So there's elements of that overlay that's sort of form-based zoning, which is where a lot of communities are heading now, is like a form-based zoning approach versus a Euclidean zoning approach, which is really focused on use of land use. But I don't think that we've had real substantial rewrite or update to the zoning ordinance beside those amendments that have happened over time since the 90s.
And is that typical of municipalities across the Commonwealth, or are we unique to this?
No, I
Not
would say
looking at
generally
RSA.
speaking, generally speaking, it's pretty typical. I think we were probably a little overdue compared to the average on actually undertaking the Now Next plan. So planners used to refer to them as like citywide master plans. They don't really
Right.
use that terminology anymore. But the last time we had done something like that was in the 80s. So we were nearly 40 years since the last comprehensive plan. So I think we were a little overdue in that regard. But I'd say a lot of communities still have, zoning ordinance that have roots that date back to, the area of like 60s and 70s where we were trying to accommodate the automobile. A lot of what you see these days with like off-street parking ratios and some land use and things like that really date to when all of America was obsessed with trying to accommodate the automobile, essentially.
Thank you. Counselor Toomey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking of that, those plans, I know at one time I had asked about talking to developers about ensuring that they take a look into providing shared transportation options in their, as part of their whole plan. I know we talked about, it didn't last very long. I know the colleges still have it, but what was it, the zip cars? Zip cars, I know now there's scooters, there's all sorts of other different options. So just, where are we with those discussions? Have they ever been had, or is that something that we should be taking a look at moving forward?
Mr. Dunn?
Through the chair to the council, I think that's definitely one of the considerations that would be taken as we look at this zoning rewrite in terms of how they're accommodating users. So whether that's, new residents in a residential development or employees in a commercial development or even customers, right? If it's like a retail kind of serving environment. Right now, I know the commercial corridor overlay district contemplates bike racks and has like a reduction, small reduction of off-street parking if you're providing accommodations for bike, but we don't have anything codified right now in the zoning ordinance around kind of shared vehicles like a zip car system. We have had some developers propose having those types of shared use vehicles available in their development. And I think it helps when they're making the case for maybe a variance for reducing the off-street parking requirement, or getting the zoning board of appeals support for how much parking they are providing. So I know it's been kind of woven into some of the storytelling and accommodations for projects, but it hasn't yet been codified in our zoning ordinance beyond, the bike storage type of thing that we have right now.
I know that, through you, Madam Chair, I know that I recently filed an order requesting rules and regulations for non-automobiles transportation for road safety, et cetera. So maybe that all needs to be talked about at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion would be to file 3B.
Councilors Pasillo, Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. Item 3C, transmitting informational communication relative to business and community development division updates. Mr. Dunn?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We had submitted this back in the summer. Actually, it was timely. We wanted to get some updates to the council about some of the activities of our business and community development division, and it fell kind of in between our typical semi-annual reports to the council in the spring and the fall. And so this report highlights some of their recent activities, updates, and programs. In particular, I'll highlight a few. One of the things that is kind of their bread and butter that they do and has done for a long time is the financial assistance programs that we have available for small businesses. They have also leaned in to the technical assistance needs of our small businesses. So that plays an important role in terms of making sure that business owners or aspiring business owners are first ready for business ownership and understand from our perspective, like one of our kind of subject matter expertise is like how their business will interact with the municipality as it relates to permits and licensing. But we also have a number of other technical assistance providers that help them with just the general development of a business plan, some financial considerations, operational type considerations. And so we are, this division led by Vasque Gino on our team, leads and facilitates the monthly Worcester Business Resource Alliance meetings, which is a coalition of those resource providers and technical assistance providers. And some of them do things that, you know, is their level of expertise, and then we get referrals from them if it relates to, in particular, how their businesses might be interacting with the municipality. And that was, I think there was a light shown on that throughout the pandemic as well, was the need for that type of technical assistance for owners that during that time frame needing to pivot or figuring out how to adapt to that changing environment. Some of that, you know, lingering in the wake of the pandemic, some of those pivots that had to be made and continued to be relevant today. And so we had one of our ARPA categories that we had been communicating to the council, there was an allocation for ARPA funding for those local technical assistance providers to provide that level of technical assistance. So we worked with the Latin American Business Organization, the Mass Women of Color Coalition, Small Business Development Center at Clark University, the Southeast Asian Coalition of Central Mass, and WPI related to some of those technical assistance programs. And then we also really wanted to get an update to the council at this time in the summer related to our Minority and Women Business Enterprise Initiative, not only to kind of communicate some of the successes of our efforts to get more businesses certified, which was very successful in terms of getting them the assistance they needed to go through that state process of getting certified as either a woman-owned or minority-owned business enterprise, and it also expanded to veteran-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned, lesbian, gay, bisexual, so LGBTQ-owned, disability-owned businesses, and we had literally hundreds of businesses go through that. And as part of some of the dollars that we had from American Rescue Plan Act, as well as some of the settlement funds we got from the Attorney General related to Polar Park, we were able to provide a $5,000 grant or stipend to those businesses that achieve that certification. And then building upon that, we recently launched with the remaining Attorney General dollars a program to help particularly those certified businesses in the construction industry be positioned better for government contracting opportunities. So we knew through the study that we had done a few years ago with the UMass Donahue Institute that there are a number of costs and just capacity challenges with some of our smaller businesses to be able to be well positioned to get some government grant opportunities. And so this program that we're kind of accepting applications for now, specifically in construction, is geared towards providing some additional financial assistance to help kind of bring down some of those barriers that we had learned about through that study that we did engaging with those businesses about government contracting opportunities. And then the Business and Community Development Division has taken a lead over the last few years on the Transformative Development Initiative, the program through Mass Development, both with the Maine South neighborhood designation that was sort of through the pandemic, and then most recently over the last couple of years with the Pleasant Street, Lower Pleasant Street area, which has had a number of successes that we kind of talk about in this report. And Mass Development just launched their latest application for new district nominations, which we are submitting, as we heard through the last process when we applied for Pleasant Street, both from yourself, Madam Chair, as well as stakeholders in the lower Lincoln Street area, that they were interested in having that opportunity and that partnership. And so we just actually submitted on Friday the application for the latest designation round for the lower Lincoln Street area. So look forward to that hopefully being successful. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Councilor Toomey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you recall, Mr. Dunn, you and I had conversations a while back about connecting the Commonwealth's minority women-owned business programs and ours to have that more local connection. How has that evolved?
Through the chair to the councilor, yeah, as we kind of started to implement this initiative, and particularly the program, and getting more folks certified. We've been working very closely with the state's Office of Supplier Diversity, a lot of which they have been out here in Worcester, but a lot of what they do, the first step is a pre-certification workshop, which is done virtually. So a lot of our communications with them tend to be virtually and over email. And I think we actually, to be honest, overwhelmed them a little bit because of the response that we had with this program. They had to add several more pre-certification workshops because they were filling up pretty quickly. And so I think they've definitely appreciated, what we've been doing and getting more folks, because at the end of the day, we have similar goals, both us and the state, to get more eligible businesses certified and positioned for these government contracting opportunities. And so I think they've appreciated what we've been doing, and, we appreciate them adding those additional workshops and making some other changes here or there related to, some of their processes, some things that we've observed that could be improved upon that they've been taking under advisement, because it is not a simple process. It takes, at least a couple of months to go through their process. And so we do think that there's opportunities to make that a little less cumbersome, a little less time consuming, if we really want to achieve what we all hope to do is get as many eligible businesses certified as possible. So, but that communication and partnership has been going fairly well with that state office.
Do we have any thoughts about having an ombudsman specifically for these folks?
Yeah, through the chair to the counselor, I think our staff in the Business and Community Development Division kind of serve in that kind of way. And I think all of them have the ability to do that in terms of navigating various permits, licenses, and things like that. I think we have heard that there could be an opportunity, as we think about the positions that we have in that department, to be maybe thinking about the titles of those, or like how we message, certain staff and what they do. And because I think people hear the term ombudsman, they know what they do, versus some of the titles we have, or just maybe some businesses not even knowing that our department exists or this division exists. So how do we do a better job of either messaging, the staff that we have, what they can offer to small businesses, and just better reach the business owners in the community to know what we do and what we can offer for assistance. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about, and maybe there's an opportunity to maybe retitle something in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. Want to talk about the TDI. Certainly seen all the good work that took place in Maine South, and as you know, I was advocating for the last several years for the lower Lincoln Street for the TDI, and just talking to some folks in the Pleasant Street area, it was amazing how happy they were with the help they were getting from the TDI. So it certainly has been a successful program. Look forward to see what happens in the lower Lincoln Street area. And there's a lot of people in that business community that, since we've had the meeting up there, that have reached out, and they're really excited about getting going on this. So I think it'll be extremely helpful. So kudos to your department that, as you just indicated, there's so many different things that you do, and do the titles need to be maybe tweaked a little bit? That's certainly a potential there. But again, thank you for all the work that you guys are doing up there. So my motion would be to file 3C.
Councilors Pasillo, Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. 3D, transmitting informational communication relative to fiscal year 2024 annual report of the Worcester Jobs Fund. Mr. Dunn?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is really a report that indicates the efforts of the staff over at the Mass Hire Central Region Workforce Board, and particularly An Dow, who is our director of the Worcester Jobs Fund. And so they try to make sure that they're communicating to the council, of course, myself and the manager, but to the council every year, because of the support that both the administration and the council provides to them through the annual tax levy process. So they try to make sure that they're communicating back, what they've been able to achieve with those dollars. And so just some highlights from FY24, 84 low-income residents were able to get enrolled in job trainings across 6 different industries, and 84% of those participants were people of color. 58% of those participants were women. The average wage of program graduates is over $25 an hour, and that statistic is an increase of nearly $3 an hour compared to the prior fiscal year. And their estimate, based on the snapshot enclosed, is that the estimated return on investment for the dollars that the city provides through the tax levy budget is an estimated return of 378%. So those are some of the highlights, just some of the industries. I think there was actually an article too, I think it might have been in the Worcester Guardian, about the particular success they've had with school bus drivers and the partnership with the Worcester Public Schools, which has been great to see. And they continue to do clinical medical assistants, pharmacy technicians, phlebotomists, other CDL training, certainly the Building Pathways program and the building trades, and then the partnership on biomanufacturing with local life science companies. And so one of the graduates is making over $40 an hour, but with that average being successful at just over $25 an hour. So it continues to be a great initiative, important thing that I think we need to continue and build upon. And so we look forward to doing that. And I'm sure we'll have another annual report from them hopefully shortly, because now we're at the end of FY25 for quite a few months now. So
Great job. Councillor Toomey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, that's wonderful news, because they say that in order to be able to rent a one-bedroom a year in Worcester, you need to earn $51,680 a year, and that would mean they'd be above that level, which is wonderful to hear that that's happening for folks, and that there's a lot more jobs out there, a lot more training that would enable people to improve the quality of life in their future. And so I know my day job we work with Mass Hire a lot for our clients, and I know they're doing a wonderful job, and thank you for all of your advocacy and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion would be to file item 3D.
Councilors Pasillo, Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 3E, transmitting information communication relative to the status of CSX funding. Mr. McGurthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This memo, as described, is an update of the CSX community funds, which were part of the 2010 Memorandum of Agreement between the city, MassDOT, and CSX. It provides both an update on funds that were allocated on behalf of Shrewsbury Street, the Canal District, and Grafton Hill, as well as includes 2 orders which relate to projects recommended for funding. One is the funding for Harding Street improvements that were done back around 2014, 2015. This allocation was approved by the CSX Neighborhood Advisory Committee, but it does not appear that the City Council ever completed the approval, that it went through the City Council process. So we've submitted it here for final approval, as well as a proposal of $200,000 for Holmes Field, related to a lighting improvement project that has been proposed in Holmes Field. It is included in the city's FY26 capital budget, and this order would allow for the transfer of the funds to facilitate that project.
Thank you, Mr. McGurthy. So again, just for public record, Mr. McGurthy, the monies for CSX, those are gate fees that we are speaking about at this particular time, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. There's actually a component of community funds that were allocated directly under the MOA, $1 million. And then there was a component that was committed to funded through the gate fee process. Those gate fees are collected annually by the city. These projects can then, if there's funding within the account, they're spent directly, or the city manager has agreed to bond for future anticipated payments to fulfill the obligation. I should have mentioned in this memo from the manager, he also commits to the second $1 million of gate fees. The original MOA and original commitments assumed $1 million collection over 20 years. We collected about $1 million over 10 years. So the city manager has brought forward the offer to have an additional $1 million divided among the 3 communities. That item is actually going to City Council tomorrow night with just a loan authorization to allow for us to fund these projects as we go along in case the gate fees haven't been collected to date.
But again, what I want people to understand is the gate fees from CSX, which was anticipated over 20 years, it would be $1 million. We learned, and again, that $1 million, there was a committee that was set up for that first 10 years. And it was for that first piece of the monies. Again, the city bonded the $1 million up front. And so all these projects that you see that are listed here was from that first allocation of monies, of which some of these projects were not, the money was allocated, but the money was not spent because, for example, in the Canal District, when the $35 million was spent in Kelly Square, there was some of that monies that did not have to be spent because it was it became part of the $35 million project in Kelly Square. We also have in here that there was some monies for the Tobias Bolin statue, which again, there was, I believe it was $100,000 that was allocated for that statue. We did not have to use that money because we had a donor who paid the $300,000 for the Tobias Bolin statue. And in terms of the second 10 years, that second 10 years, if I look at the memo from the city manager's office, which that second 10 years, there was a discussion and we had come to the agreement and with what happens with CSX, that there would be an additional $1 million. But that memo, basically at the end of the day, coming from the city manager, was in June of 2025. Is that correct, Mr. McGurthy?
Through the chair, that's correct. The extension to that second $1 million of gate fees occurred this year in June.
Okay, thank you. But what happens right now is CSX, there's a certain amount of gate fees that takes place, and do they continually send us a check? Is it once a month for those gate fees, or is that quarterly?
Through the chair, it's annually.
It's annually they're doing it.
Right. We reach out annually. They notify us how much the traffic has occurred in terms of container passage. We then send them the invoice for that gate fee amount. They then pay that invoice.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. McGurthy. Counselor Toomey, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I do. I'm just curious, the gate fee generation reached a height in 2016 and has continuously, well, it went up a smidgen, and it dropped in 2017, went up a smidge in 18, but has consistently been dropping. And I'm just curious, do we know why?
Through the chair, I have not had a direct conversation with CSX about that. It has to do with the type of goods, I believe, that are passing through Worcester, coming into eastern Massachusetts, or going in the other direction as well. We actually, as a broader region, produce very little substantial goods, and much of that can be shipped out by sea. A lot of the goods that are coming in here, it's my understanding, are coming in from other parts of the world, coming into Los Angeles, coming by train as far as Worcester, and then passing out via truck. And I think it's just the type and size of goods that might be passing through the rail yard at this point. The amount has not changed in terms of what we collect for gate fees. It's simply the number of containers that are passing through the Port of Worcester, the CSX facility.
It's just curious to see those numbers drop, and just curious why.
They also opened up
yeah.
another facility.
Oh, that's, all right, there you go.
Is where there's over 200 containers that are stored at that other facility.
Where-
So I'm sure that that's what you're seeing.
Where was the other one?
Seeing there.
Madam Chair, where was the other facility?
Right now, I can't give you the
Okay.
exact location, but it certainly is in Worcester. And they have done a very good job about not putting those trucks in areas that they had agreed to in the MOU. Back in 2015, there were lots of complaints and concerns about the amount of CSX trucks on the city streets. Since then, there was a tremendous amount of work that was done with all of the different mapping apps that we have. And so most of those trucks now, you will see when they're coming out of the gate, they're coming out onto Grafton Street, and they are going right. They're not going left. So there's certainly been lots of discussion, lots of conversations, lots of work that has been done with CSX and the administration. But thank you, Mr. McGurthy. Is there anyone online who would like to discuss item 3E?
Madam Chair, no one is raising their hand at this time.
My motion would be to approve.
Councilors Pasillo, Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. Item 3F, recommend adoption of a resolution and approval of a UCH TIF plan and agreement for Curtis Apartments Phase 2. I believe that would be Mr. Dunn.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This was submitted to the City Council October 21st, and the council did support it and vote on it, but then it was reconsidered and referred to this committee on November 18th because after the vote, we had recognized that our responsible development ordinance calls for any TIF requests to come before this committee. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't run afoul of that language in the ordinance. And so this item, as you know, is related to the second phase of the Curtis Apartments redevelopment. Phase 1 has gone very well, and the second phase, just alone on the second phase, it's estimated at about $146 million, which will consist of the demolition of 114 existing public housing units that will be replaced 1-for-1, as well as an additional 2 public housing units. And then beyond the public housing units, there'll be an additional 34 apartments that will be at a mix of incomes, all affordable, but at a mix of 60% and 80% area median income. So taking, what is largely considered obsolete public housing, seeing that refreshed, reconstructed, built to modern standards, and then also adding additional density on the land that's already controlled by the Housing Authority. And so as part of this phase 2, we also wanted to highlight their partnership with us in creating what's called the Economic Opportunity Center. And that Economic Opportunity Center will be a mixed-use building with 20,000 square feet of commercial space with a community facility that will serve for the resident programs offered by Worcester Housing Authority. It'll include some of Worcester Housing Authority office space, and then I think most excitingly, it'll include a branch public library, Great Brook Valley branch of the Worcester Public Library. So looking forward to seeing that space created there to kind of give that full suite of services to families and residents for anything from job training, tutoring, after school, financial coaching, other enrichment programs, because one of the things that the Housing Authority has been trying to lean into is that ability to serve their families to self-sufficiency and hopefully see them move on to even home ownership opportunity out of the Housing Authority properties. And so these types of spaces will help them with that. And because of the structure similar to phase 1, where the Housing Authority is partnering with a for-profit developer, Trinity Financial, there's a limited partnership that's created for this project to be carried out, and where the Worcester Housing Authority is otherwise tax exempt from the basis of property taxes, this limited partnership would create a taxable environment for the new property. And so that's what really necessitates the consideration of the tax increment financing plan and TIF agreement through this state program, the UCH TIF program.
Thank you. Councilor Toomey?
I have no further questions, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online? Mr. Pottle?
Madam Chair, no one is raising their hand.
Motion would be to approve.
Councilors Pasillo, Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. Item number 4A, this item will be held until our next meeting, which will be December 11th. We will hear item 4A. We had a scheduling conflict for this evening, so item 4A will be heard on December 11th. My motion would be to adjourn, Mr. Pottle.
Councilors Pasillo, Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson.
Yes. Thank you.